Hey guys, we got a new huge 30-minute trailer for Path of Exile 2 gameplay. I'm very curious to see what's up. Let's go. UI looks the same.
Welcome
Almost.
to Path of Exile 2.
Hello.
We'd like to start off by showing some of the gameplay of Act 3, one of the 6 acts in PoE 2's campaign.
6.
We're starting here in the jungle depths. Act 3 is set in the ruins of the Vile civilization, which fell thousands of years ago. Jungle has taken over their former once great cities, and we'll be exploring it using one of our 6 new character classes.
Is this the monk? Yeah, there
in
you go.
PoE 1, we had one character class for each of the combinations of strength, dexterity, and intelligence. When looking at the design of PoE 2, though, we realized that many of the new skills that we were trying to design just didn't really fit thematically with the existing classes that we have. Being a spellcaster with a bear form makes sense for Strength Int, but it doesn't really sound like something that a Templar would do. We realized that since we had new mechanics for every attribute combination, it actually made sense to design new character classes to explore the new themes. In PoE 2, every attribute combination has 2 classes associated with it. Strength Int has the Templar or the Druid. On Dexterity, you have the Ranger or the more spear-focused Huntress. And on Dex Int, you have the Shadow and the Monk. Which Mark is playing here? Each class has its own 3 ascendancies that let you further specialize the class in a way that only that class has access to. But they both start at the same location in the passive tree. The quest rewards you're offered on the 2 variants are tailored to the class, but of course, this is PoE. You can still mix and match anything to your heart's content.
Nice. Options. Look at this guy. Jesus.
Looks like we've come across the boss for this area. In PoE 2, every area of the campaign contains a boss of at least this difficulty. That's over 100 bosses to fight as you make your way through the campaign.
Yeah, we saw the previous trailer.
Mechanics to learn.
That's awesome. 100 bosses, let's go. It's perfect. Then you can add these bosses to the maps, you know? So it makes perfect sense. Where's that lower resist? Movement, yep.
As you've seen from watching Mark fighting, the melee combat in PoE 2 has a very different feel than before. We've done a lot of things to add mobility to combat. Practically every melee skill in PoE 2 has some kind of movement built into it. The Monk in particular is a melee fighter who specializes in mobility over brute strength.
Nice. Cool animations. Again, this is the beginning, you know, of the level, you know, like probably lower level and whatnot, so the combat is still very, like, intense. You micromanage a lot, but I'm sure, like, later on, like it currently is in Path of Exile, you're just spinning to win, you know, and you're killing, like, 50 enemies at the same time, you know, including the boss. But we'll see, who knows, maybe I'm wrong. I enjoy either one, honestly. I like this, I like the other style. Transmutation, that's still the same.
So, as Mark has been playing, you might have noticed these blue markers over enemies. Mark has a skill equipped called Killing Palm. Whenever an enemy has a blue indicator over it, it means that the monster has low enough life to cull with Killing Palm. Successfully executing the cull will give you a power charge. This is an important skill for the Monk, since many of his skills interact with power charges.
I see.
One of the great things about the skill is that it has a built-in dash forward, which makes it much easier to target the skill at the right point when you need it.
Nice.
We've done a lot of work in PoE 2 to make using skills like this feel satisfying. If you're accidentally targeting slightly off the monster, the skill will automatically lock on to the cullable target.
Perfect.
And will even do a small amount of pathfinding around obstacles.
Nice.
You really want to make sure that when you've got an opportunity to use the skill, nothing is going to get in your way.
Cool. Very nice, very nice.
Once you have some power charges, you need some skills to power up.
Interesting.
Great follow-up is Falling Thunder. Falling Thunder without a power charge just creates a relatively small lightning AoE in front of you. But do it with some power charges and it turns into a pack clearer with a large number of extra projectiles.
Nice.
One thing you'll notice here is that like almost every melee skill in PoE 2, Falling Thunder has a bit of extra movement built in just in case you need it. Using the skill within range and you'll do a flip in place.
Nice.
Use it at a larger range and your character will move forward while executing it, getting you into position without any time.
The animation is really smooth. It's great to look at. It feels right.
In PoE 2, you also get a short period to redirect your target. Notice how you can start the skill facing one way, then whip the mouse sideways to land the skill in a different direction? In order to get power charges, you're going to first need to get some lower life monsters into a cullable range. You've got a few options. If you want to charge right in, Whirling Assault is a good option. It doesn't do much damage per hit, but it covers a lot of ground. And notice how you can turn as you do it?
Yep.
Generally speaking, you never lose control of your character in PoE 2. If you make a turn at the right time, you can get a couple of extra hits in on the monsters, getting them into range of your cull. Follow up with a Killing Palm, then finish off the rest of the pack with your Falling Thunder.
Damn, nice. Looks clean, man. It looks clean. That's what it is. Until again, you get like 800 enemies on the screen. But it looks very clean.
We've now entered the Val Mechanarium. This is the place where the Val built the various constructs they relied on to power their civilization.
Oh, Alpha's back.
Now this
Again, it makes
is a
sense
find.
for being a Val temple.
Ruin that hasn't been looted? I
Yeah.
wonder why nobody's been in here before.
One useful feature that we've added is the ability to call in NPCs to where you are, to give you more information, help you with quest objectives, and so that you don't have to always go back to town. In this case, we'll call in Alva to find out what to do.
Makes sense. Hey, that's awesome, man.
Mechanism.
That's so cool.
If
Wow.
powered with a small
I'm guessing you
salt
also have the
water,
option to
could
go back
open
in town
that
and talk to
door.
them then, but why not have them
Should
use the
definitely
town
be
portal? Yeah,
somewhere
absolutely.
around here. They had to power these
That's such a good
constructs
idea. So at least you
somehow.
never leave the maps and whatnot. You don't have to like
As
go
Alva
back.
said, we need to
come
find
back.
a soul core to open this door.
Unless you want to sell.
Explore. If you want to shave off some life without getting too close to some of the more dangerous monsters, a good option is Wind Blast. Wind Blast also doesn't do too much damage, but it keeps the enemies back. The closer they are, the farther they're pushed back. So it's a great option for keeping smaller but high damage enemies at bay.
And you can also
Note
like
that
group
the
them
bigger the
together
enemy is, the less they'll be pushed back. So trying to push
for
back some
like
giants isn't going to be
better
effective.
AoE damage. Small skull core. Soul
And there's
core,
the
sorry.
soul core. Let's get back to the door.
Guy has a shield on. Against projectiles and against him. Yeah, this skill is like really good to like group them together and then like finish them off with AoE, you know? Again, the graphics look really good. A lot of like shadows, a lot of darkness and light, which looks really good. It's like very dark, except when you have like all these sunlights going in there.
Consider me impressed.
That was easy.
I'll keep investigating in here. Bring me in if you find
There's like
anything
animals
else.
coming out of the door.
If you need to defeat tougher enemies,
Bugs.
it might be time to break out some of the ice skills in the monk's arsenal.
You've
Glacial
seen
Cascade
Cyclone,
creates a wave
but
of
it's not
ice that
Cyclone.
moves slowly in front of the player. It's pretty ineffective against fast-moving monsters because most of the damage occurs right at the end of the wave, and so a lot of monsters will just walk right by it. But
That looks
if you can
really
find
cool.
a way to make
The
a
skill
monster stop
itself.
at just the right place, it can be
Boom.
very effective. In order to do that, you probably want to freeze monsters.
The spike
Monk
is really
has a
nice
few
looking.
different
The
tools to do
spikes.
this. A fairly simple option is to get right in the monster's face with Ice Strike. Ice Strike doesn't do too much damage on the first two hits, but attack 3
Freezes.
times in sequence and you can get off a combo that has a
Nice.
much higher chance to freeze.
Nice.
Get in there with that freeze, then roll back and finish the job with a Glacial Cascade.
And we also saw
Now,
it works
remember
against
how
bosses.
Glacial Cascade had that extra damaging spike at the end? If you've hit a frozen enemy with that spike, it shatters the ice on the enemy and does a devastating amount of damage.
Nice. Very cool. Very
Oh yeah,
cool.
I just casually mentioned rolling back before. Did
True.
I forget to mention that in PoE 2 we added a dodge roll to every
Yeah,
character?
I figured.
Just press spacebar at any time to roll.
I
There's
figured.
no cooldown, no limitations. It even has a bit of built-in pathfinding so you don't get stuck on things.
No cooldown?
When you dodge roll, you're not invulnerable. If something hits you, you're going to feel it, but most things will not hit you. That's because while rolling, projectiles and melee strikes will always miss. You'll have to roll out of the way of a slam that has AoE, but anyone swinging a sword or throwing a fireball is going to miss.
It makes sense.
Now, another really important function of the dodge roll is that it lets you cancel out of almost any skill at
Yeah.
any time. This makes it so you don't feel like you're getting stuck doing a long animation. when
Oh, that's
something's
really
about to
cool
hit
too,
you.
man.
It
There's a lot of
really
options.
changes how skills with longer attack and cast times play.
It's kind of like
And
a
makes
reloading
dodge
in Call
roll
of
feel
Duty,
like
you
a very
know?
reliable way. to
Sorry,
avoid
running in
attacks.
Call of Duty.
So, that's one way
When
to
we
get out of
reload.
the way of damage.
Cancels the
Monk
reload.
specializes in mobility, so it makes sense that he would have a few more. Wave of Frost is one of our new attacks with a
I don't
retreat
know, I'm
built
bringing out
right
Call of
in.
Duty in here, but
You move backwards and
If you ever
throw out
played
a
it, you know
cold
what I'm
attack
talking
with a
about.
significant freeze. The great thing about this is it puts you at a good distance to follow up with Glacial Cascade and do a whole pile of damage. Hey look, another Soul Core.
I really enjoy the options. And the, I'll almost call it like a high skill level. So again, you can just
Another
play this
skill you
game
can
normal,
use
you
to
can
get
like
some
really,
extra
be
freeze
really
is Shattering
skillful
Palm.
and
Shattering
dodge
Palm is
stuff
another palm
and
strike that puts a small ice bomb on your target. Kill or deal enough damage to the target and the bomb will explode,
Use it as
doing
you
some
see
damage
fit.
and significant freeze. It's a great option against bosses where the wave of ice might not be enough to get that freeze off, but you really want to get that Glacial Cascade damage bonus.
back. Get back to like the like the random statue, you know, in the temple. I love it. Enemies are really cool though. And again, the shadows. Check out the shadows, man.
Face your demise.
Face your
The final skill we're going to show you today is Flicker Strike. It's a
Oh.
monk skill now, and another skill
Oh.
that consumes power charges. If you've played PoE 1,
Yep.
you know what to expect.
horrible. I have horrible expectations. Let's go.
It's a great finisher for tough boss fights, and it looks pretty impressive too.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Face your
Yeah,
demise.
yeah. It actually looks a bit less insane than Path of Exile 1, where you can the thing can carry you all over the place, and you're just watching a screen
Another
move
door.
basically.
I wonder what could be in there.
Boss. What is that? Is that what? That's the waypoint. Except you can't teleport to it, so in case you die, it just brings you back here. I see. The flicker strike in this game reminds me a bit of the monk in Diablo 3. I forgot what the skill was called. It's like teleports around the guy there with punches.
In order to take down this boss, we're going to need all the tools in the monk's arsenal, especially the combo of Freeze and Glacial Cascade. If you're a PoE 1 player, you might think that you can't really rely on Freeze because there's so many bosses that are immune to it.
True, yeah, I was doing the
In
same
PoE
thing.
2, that's changing significantly.
For every boss?
PoE 1, Freeze is a binary mechanic. An attack freezes the target, or it doesn't. What this basically means is that in PoE 1, we were forced to add freeze immunity to many bosses, because freeze just trivialized them. Because of that, freezing was something you only really used while pack clearing, and not something you could rely on as a core part of your build for boss fight. In
You
PoE
see
2
the
though,
freeze
all
gathering
crowd
on the
control
enemy.
mechanics now have internal meters that allow you to build up to a freeze or stun, or
Nice.
whatever other CC mechanic you might be using.
Okay, kind of like in
It's a
Diablo
little bit
4.
like poise from games like Elden Ring, though the meters tend to be a lot smaller
Oh,
than
that, yeah, that's weird.
when you freeze an enemy, it increases the amount of freeze you need to do another freeze, but the increased difficulty bleeds away slowly. More freeze will always let you freeze the boss more often, but this system means it will not get out of control in party play or interact badly with other CC mechanics,
Nice.
allowing
Okay.
us to let these kinds of mechanics actually work against all bosses.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, that's very good. It doesn't render the skill useless either, you know? Look at the movements on this guy, jeez. Nice, very nice. Combat looks great, a lot of fun. You gotta use your skills properly, you gotta dodge. Fire. You got the effects on the ground as well. Taste flash. What is he doing? Oh, he's stunned. Okay. Oh. But wouldn't we see that? Like, is there like a bar? Like, Diablo 4 had a bar, which I really enjoy. I guess this one doesn't have one. Path of Exile doesn't have a bar. It's gonna freeze when it freezes, basically. You know, Diablo 4 you had the CC bar. You can see exactly what's going on. But I do appreciate the system because, again, it doesn't just make a boss immune to, like, freeze or immune to stun or whatever, you know? No, you can do it, but it'll take you a while. Also, what is this fire thing? Is that like the element of the boss? Fire? I mean, you see a lot of fire attacks. Is that what it means? I love like telegraph attacks, so you can dodge easily.
Blackjaw has dropped a consumable quest item, the Flame Core. It's a permanent
Dude, did
plus
I
10
just
to
see
spell.
gold? I just realized there's gold? 5,000
In
gold.
PoE 2, we really want to make sure that you feel rewarded for exploration.
Oh,
It wouldn't be much good if we made all these awesome optional bosses if we didn't have something great to find for killing them.
that's freaking awesome,
One of the things
dude.
you might find for killing a boss is a permanent stat bonus to your character.
Yeah, again, Altars of Lilith in Diablo 4. But except this one, you actually gotta defeat something to get it. That's so cool, especially people like me who I enjoy doing every single map and killing every little boss. That's perfect, man. You actually have a reason to do it, you know, beyond just, you know, completionism, right? You actually
Your fate is sealed.
plus 10 spirit. That's huge, man. I feel like almost like a skill point in some of the skill points in the passive skill tree. Golems and stuff, statues, the undead casters, undead melee, guys with fire on them. A lot of enemies too. What the fuck was that? Is that a skill? The guy just cloned himself all over the place. Look at that. There's okay. I have a feeling that the trailer's gonna finish with this guy dying, as always. But maybe not, we'll see. Nice. Blew up. Sentinels by the door, makes sense. This guy's like fire and electricity. I wonder what that means. Maybe they're immune to fire electricity, or they're vulnerable to fire electricity. Remember to use
In order to help
flasks.
us with this
Yeah.
next area, we're going to call in a sorceress. Mark's friend, Octavian, is going to send a friendvite, which we're going to accept. And then they can play together.
Oh, you gotta like.
The
drop 'em a-
sorceress is the
Oh,
new
yeah, makes
intelligence-focused character in PoE 2.
Okay.
While the witch focuses more on occult magic and summoning, the sorceress is themed around pure elemental destruction.
Makes sense.
Let's have a look at how she plays.
Let's do it. There's a lot of fire, ice. Yeah, there you go. Lighting is at the bottom here.
This is the largest soul core I've ever seen. With this, we could power the canal systems. But it isn't charged.
Yeah, of course. We'll
There
have
is
to fix
still
it.
latent energy in this machinarium from its ancient operation. These lines in the stonework should lead to generators. You might need to find some more soul cores to spin
Nice
them
music,
out.
by the way.
But everything looks to be in
Soundtrack is nice.
surprisingly decent
Scary,
condition.
dangerous.
Maybe the golems have been maintaining it. In any case, it should still function. We'll have to remove that large core from the wall, of course, but that shouldn't be a problem.
We have some skills here that you'll probably recognize if you've played PoE 1 before, but they feel a bit different to play now. Spark is great in these tight passages since it bounces around. We've added a
so
Pierce
cool.
support gem to really allow it to hit an entire room of targets. For a more
Nice.
single target focused skill, Arc is a good choice. It does more damage to the first target you hit.
Damn, that stuff really goes all over the place. The effects are so cool, though.
Now, if you find yourself surrounded, it might
Well, yeah,
be good
these
to
guys,
use
the
Ice
ghosts
Nova.
there.
It hits all enemies around you and slows them down
Yep,
with chill.
makes
Just
sense.
be careful. Getting up close and personal isn't the ideal place for a sorceress to be. She doesn't
range
have the
is really
defenses
short,
of
too.
a more melee-oriented character. If you want to help with the sorceress's weak melee defense, though, you could use Arctic Armor. In PoE 2, Arctic Armor is a buff that builds up as you stand still. You can see the ice crystals forming around the character. They'll drop off if you walk. When monsters hit you, they take cold damage and build up to a freeze, so it's a great defense. Just be careful. You have to be standing still for a little while to get the full effect, so trying to stutter step isn't the best strategy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Now,
gonna, well,
Arctic
that's
Armor
gonna
is
work.
an ongoing buff, but did you notice it didn't reserve any mana? How does that work? Well, we were pretty sick of the fact that in PoE 1, basically every character was playing with no mana pool, so we decided to change the way that reservation works.
Nice.
There's a new resource in PoE 2 called Spirit. Spirit is a dedicated resource you can use for ongoing effects like
Weird.
Arctic Armor, Heralds, Auras, or even Minions. Everyone starts with 100 Spirit, which is enough for most ongoing effects.
Trying to find
But
on the
if
UI.
you want more than one effect, you're going to need some more Spirit. Spirit is available on mods from items and on the passive tree. But
Okay.
if you're willing to give up your offhand slot, the easiest way to get it is by holding a scepter.
I'm just wondering about this armor. You don't really stand still in Path of Exile. You're always on
Now,
the move.
if you want
Unless
to
you can
increase the
teleport
cold
and
damage
it
you're dealing,
counts.
you can use a Frost Bomb. It places a bomb on the ground that reduces the enemy's
You can
cold
teleport
resistance while
and the
it's
armor
ticking
works,
down.
then you're good.
It's a great opportunity to use some cold skills before it explodes. And speaking of cold skills, a great skill to use on monsters with the slower cold resistance is Comet. This is a new skill in PoE 2, and it hits pretty damn hard. It costs a lot of mana and has a really long cast time, but it's worth the wait. It does
Cast
a
time?
devastating amount of damage. To help
That's
get you out of
interesting.
danger, your character moves back slightly as it casts.
Nice.
It's pretty
Ooh,
hard to hit a
dodge.
fast-moving opponent, but it's great on tougher enemies that stand still, or even a larger pack if you're further away and can predict where they're going to move. Now, if
A lot
you
more
wanted a mana
thinking
casting
in Path
too
of
many
Exile
those, I
too.
guess in an emergency you could cast your free-to-cast Fireball. Where did that come from, you ask? Well, this is a great opportunity to explain the way we've changed caster weapons in PoE 2. Now, in PoE 1, caster weapons had a default melee attack that nobody used, and because they had that, they also had a bunch of attack mods that would spawn in them that were useless to a caster.
So every weapon gives
In PoE
something
2, we
different?
wanted to clean that up. So now each staff comes with a built-in free-to-cast spell. Just
Got
put it on
you.
and spam to your heart's content.
Nice.
Now this particular staff is the base type that you get right on the starting beach, and it's quite likely that you're going to outgrow it. So that's why we have a lot of staves with more utility-focused powers for casters to use.
Level 1
Here we
Unleash
have a
skill?
crystal staff. It's got a pretty cool built-in spell called Unleash.
What is that?
Using it slams your staff on the ground, and will allow you to triple cast whatever you cast with your next spell. Now, of course, you're probably going to want to use that with something
Some
powerful.
of these
Comet
mods
is
are
a
gonna
great
be
option.
insanely popular.
You'll notice that Unleash is one of the few skills in PoE 2 with a cooldown.
Yeah.
In general, we really try to avoid using cooldowns because we really hate the feeling that combat is just waiting to be able to use your next skill. But it does
Opposite
make
of
sense for
Diablo 4.
Unleash since it's free to cast
That's
and
funny.
it's something we want you to be using
The exact opposite of
situationally
Diablo
anyway.
4, man. 3 and 4.
Now, if you're facing something tough, you might want to try out Mana Tempest. Mana Tempest creates a circle of power in which your character literally hovers over the ground. While in the circle, your mana drains, but it powers up all of your spells. Lightning projectiles fork, beams chain further, and you'll also do a lot more damage.
Alright. Very interesting mechanics. Very unique. I love the spark and like
So with all of these
Small
skills,
rooms.
here's a great combo to try. First, cast Frost Bomb to reduce the target's cold resistance. Then use Mana Tempest to increase your damage.
Yep.
Follow it with Unleash, and then triple cast the Comet to do a truly insane amount of damage.
Jesus, that was so sick. Nice combo too.
I need more time.
That was great.
This rare monster dropped an uncut gem. This is a good opportunity to
convenient.
talk about how skill gems drop in PoE 2.
It does.
Instead of dropping specific gems, you can find uncut gems. Just right-click on them and pick whatever skill you want.
Jesus.
The gem will come pre-leveled to the level of the area that dropped it.
Wow.
So it's a lot easier to change between skills in PoE 2. This time, I think it might be cool to grab one of our meta gems. Meta gems are skills that can have other skills socketed into them, changing how they work. In this
Of
case, we're
course.
going to select Cast on Shock. Now, let's equip this thing in the skill screen and choose a spell to trigger with it. I think Comet might be fun.
Alright.
Because Cast on Shock reserves Spirit, we'll need to first disable our Arctic armor. We have to decide if we'd rather have the extra defense or the extra offense of the Cast on Shock using our Spirit.
You can remove it from the thing.
In
Nice.
PoE 2,
Good.
trigger gems use a
skill
system
tree.
of filling up cast time on each trigger. Basically, if a skill has a short cast time, then we'll trigger it really often. If it's got a long cast time, like this Comet here, it will take a lot longer to trigger.
Oh,
You can
nice.
see up the top left that there's a counter that says
Sounds
how
very
far
fair.
it is until your next trigger.
Oh,
There you are.
that's so cool.
Cast on Shock will automatically
Yeah,
cast
top
Comet
left.
whenever we're using our lightning skills.
I like it, man. I like it a lot. It feels a bit more restrained, but I feel
So we
like
found
it
the
works
generator.
so much
Time
better.
to power it up.
Animations, okay. Crazy ass technology, you know?
As power is restored to the Mechanarium, all the constructs are coming back to life.
Makes
We'll need
sense.
to fight them on the way back to the charged
Makes
soul core.
sense. It's nice.
One thing that PoE 1 players might have noticed is that this character has both ice and lightning spells.
Yeah.
That's pretty inefficient, isn't it? It's a big no-no for most builds because any
I guess so.
specialization into cold or lightning isn't going to affect the other element. And generic elemental damage increases are not going to be as powerful as focusing on a single element.
True.
Well, in PoE 2,
They
we have
fixed it.
another major new system to introduce to solve
Tell
these
us.
kinds of problems, and it starts with weapon swap. Now, in PoE 1, weapon swap isn't really used much for its originally intended use case. We imagined that people were going to be swapping in and out between different weapons to deal with whatever situation they were in. People just don't do that at all, and a large reason for that is because it's really awkward to do. In PoE 2, we wanted to
They
solve
do it
that.
sometimes.
The staff Octavian is using here has an ice mod on it that makes it great for when he's using his ice spells.
Yeah.
We would also like to be able to make sure that the build works just as well for his lightning spells.
Okay.
If Octavian equips his previous staff in his second weapon set, you can see that it appears on the character's back.
Oh, it
Now we're
counts?
going to open up the skills screen.
It
If
counts?
Octavian opens up the skill options for his lightning skills, you can see here that you can choose which weapon sets are usable with each skill. First, we uncheck set 1 from being used by
Whoa.
his lightning skills. Then, we go through the cold skills and turn those off with his lightning weapon.
It sounds complicated. At first view, right? But I'm sure it's easy
Now,
once you
when
get
we
it.
use Spark, the character will automatically switch to the lightning staff on his back, and then use the skill. When Octavian uses Ice Nova, his character automatically switches over to his Ice Staff before using it.
That's
Pick
interesting.
each skill for which set to use, or both if you don't mind which. There's a very short time
True.
penalty to
You
switch.
just leave it like
so
that
it'd be good
and-
to leave some skills on both sets, if it doesn't matter which weapon set you're using. But we still have the problem of passives. Wouldn't it be
True.
nice if we could specialize in both cold and lightning passives on the character?
Yeah.
Well, in PoE 2, you can. We're on the passive skill screen here, and you can see that we're close to both a cold and a lightning cluster. At the top right of the screen, you can see where we have some weapon set specific points to allocate. If Octavian holds shift, he can allocate set 1 to the cold passives, and then allocate set 2 to the lightning passives.
Oh shit.
Now check this out. As we weapon swap, our passive tree changes from one build to the other automatically. Whenever we cast the appropriate spell, the character's
Damn,
passives
man.
will reconfigure on the fly.
They're going
Correct
all in
build
on
for that
this.
spell.
They're going all in.
Now you can't do this with every passive on your tree. Only points granted from skill books will allow this kind of dual specialization. So you can't change from a mace slamming warrior into a fire elementalist with the press of a button. But it certainly increases the number of options you have for builds.
That's good. Options are always
There's a
good.
huge number of places where the system can shine. You could augment your Dagger Shadow build with traps, or have a great curse setup on your Witch in one spec, and then move to your Chaos debuff spells with the other. It really opens up your options.
Nice, man. Wow. Like, wow. I kind of like enjoy how much they're...
Another fun meta gem to try out is called Barrier Invocation. This
They're
works
going
a little bit like
hardcore
the
on
trigger
this
gem I
stuff.
talked about before, but this one charges up as
They're
your
not
energy
messing
shield
around.
is hit by monsters. I think we might like to put an Ice Nova in this one.
Sure.
The more energy shield you lose, the more charge builds up until the point where you're able to cast the skill you socketed instantly.
Let's see.
Lose some energy shield, and then at just the right time invoke Ice Nova to cast all the stacked up versions in one cast. If you keep losing shield, you'll build up even more charge for even more casts, so it's a great defensive option in an emergency.
Very cool. I see a lot of people breaking shit up with these skills, man. Casting some crazy stuff that... Doing some crazy stuff that you shouldn't be able to be doing it normally, you know? For all these options, I feel like we're gonna go nuts. Coming up like all kinds of crazy ass builds that you don't even think about, you know?
And here we are, back at the charged Soul Core. All we have to do now is take it.
And-
How hard could that be?
Yeah, final boss, right? Middle of the room.
Oh dear. Now we
Ziquapo.
just have to remove it from that construct.
Ah, there you go. It's easy enough. Some sort of a half spider, half human laser creature. You also push back the boss with the wind strike there. There you go. I also switched to the monk. Just realized. Oh, careful there, buddy. Start dodging. Reminds me a bit of the spider boss with the lasers. They don't seem to do too much damage though. I feel like you're using a lot more melee as, sorry, a lot more dodging as melee as you can see. The sorcerers barely use anything to right, and when it comes to dodges. Oh, damn it, yeah, there you go.
Your fate is sealed.
Triple comets. Yeah, a lot of movement options, that's great for melee especially.
Stay still.
Stuck there or what? Got him. They have a lot of health, these bosses though. Oh my god, so close. Yeah, I guess they do a bit of damage.
So that's
Yeah,
part
there
of
is
Exile
gold,
2.
man. I just
Your
realized.
next question is likely to be, when is the beta?
Yeah.
Well, we're in our last year of development, finishing acts, adding skills, and balancing everything. The closed beta will start on June 7th, 2024. Path of Exile 2 has been a
That's
long
a year
time coming,
away.
and we're incredibly excited to be near the finish line. But we're
Okay.
not quite there yet. We are
Good. No problem. Take
determined
your
not to
time.
rush this and make
Yep.
sure that we get it right.
Absolutely. Take
Thanks
your
for
time.
watching.
Thank you for presenting. That was a really good presentation. Felt very natural. Everything fit very well, you know. I mean, it was obviously set up, but it was very well presented. And I feel like, we've been playing Diablo 4 lately, and I feel like they're doing the exact opposite from Diablo 4. They took some stuff from Diablo, but at the same time, when they said, we want you to make sure that you use all the skills whenever you want, without barely any cooldown, is the opposite of Diablo 4, where you have a very specific way of um, building and spending your resource, right? And with like a lot of cooldowns, right? So you usually use like only 2 skills, and sometimes you use like a third and fourth, third medium cooldown skill, maybe like fourth and fifth high cooldown skills, and then the ultimate is like a ultimate cooldown skill. But man, it looks really good, and the gameplay looks really nice. A lot of options, and again, unlike Diablo, which feels it's very like user friendly and very casual. It's for everybody. This one's like they're going in the complete opposite direction. It's like, hey, listen, why don't you build like 2 passive skill trees? One is not enough. Why don't you build like 2 of them for each one of your weapons, in case you want to swap? Which is like then you gotta set up some options in the actual skills if you know which skills to use with each weapon if you choose to do so. So and again, some of these builds are freaking insane. I'm sure people are gonna come up with like some crazy. They're gonna break the game with some crazy builds. You know what I'm saying? Like the triple cast, they're gonna come up with some crazy ass shit that you're invulnerable for like the whole time, and you're dealing like 1 billion damage every second. I'm sure they will until it gets nerfed. So man, it looks really, really, really good. 1 year away, but you know what I say? You know what? Take your time. It's okay. Make sure the game is right. I'm very happy with the numbers. 100 new maps, like 400 new enemies and whatnot. That's freaking perfect. A lot of the stuff in here was really, really good. So I'm excited for this. It looks really cool. Thank you for watching. Peace.